Welcome,
Hi,
everybody. I'm Pam Holt, the happy host, and I'm here today with Gordon Jackson. Gordon is the proprietor, the host, the owner of the Yellow Block BNB in Brooklyn. Hi, Gordon.
how you doing? Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well, and thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Very excited to talk to you. I have to say that watching this show has been really inspiring for us as a group. So, let me back up first and introduce myself formally and then give you more time to introduce yourself more formally. I am for my entire career, I've been in real estate. I've been a real estate broker. I'm also an attorney. And I have most recently, last 7, 8 years, been hosting my home. And so I welcome guests here in Chicago. And most recently, even more recently than that, you can find me as the founder of the Happy Host Academy, where I help women learn to maximize the potential of their unused spaces. So when we saw your episode on the Netflix series Stay Here, we were like, oh, Ed Gordon, he is doing it. We were so inspired by it. We were excited by all of the different things that you brought to your episode. And so, if you would, why don't you start at the very beginning and tell us how you came to hosting, and then how you came to be on this show? What happened?
Yeah, well, thank you. Is it coming out? Am I okay? Am I clear for the most part?
I think you're good.
All right, cool. I appreciate it. So, well, for me, hosting, I think I shared this with you before when we had some brief dialogue prior to coming on. I'm not sure I came into it with the intent to be a host. For me, it was kind of a means to an end. I was trying to increase my revenue. I had bought this particular home, the one that was featured on Stay Here, back in August of 2001. Um,
Oh,
Shortly after 9/11 in New York City. I don't think at that point I had forecasted what it would have looked like to be a bed and breakfast or what the neighborhood would have looked like. It was a little bit different Brooklyn back then. Um, so bought the house in 2001, probably went through the same trials and tribulations as most owners, figuring out how to rent, how do you maximize the space to increase the earning potential. I'd rented rooms at one point. That was always tricky because if you rent a room to one person, you really get two people. Um, so I had tried different things over the years. At one point, I had made it into a few different apartments, being a little bit creative to maximize financing. My brother came in; he rented out a floor too with his wife and family, which I can't say thank you to him enough for helping me during those periods when I knew he would pay as a tenant because I could always call our mother if he didn't pay me. Right. So, to make a long
oh,
story short,
family.
yeah, family. That's right. So, in that way, it was very good. So, then came 2011. I started going through a divorce, which was a taxing situation for anyone. Um, and I said I need to earn more because I knew I still had obligations to my previous spouse and to my family. I wanted to make sure that their quality of life and things didn't change much. So I was like, let me be creative. So back then I didn't even know about Airbnb. I think I went on Craigslist and the first person I had rented to was a lady who came from Florida. She said she was coming to give birth to two twins, and I charged her $30 a night for a room. And she gave me $900 for one room, and I'm like, I'm already winning because I was getting, I think, like $1,400 for the whole floor.
Okay.
Then a frat brother of mine came in, and he had rented for a weekend, and he had left me cash, and he was just trying to be supportive. He was just trying to help me out. He saw the vision I had, and then I heard about Airbnb about 6 months later, because initially I was only using Craigslist, which was,
Okay.
believe it or not. But you couldn't get the reviews. There was no way to monetize what the visit was like. Airbnb and those platforms bought so much more. So I had to the house and I had to clear it floor by floor to prepare for what you guys kind of saw on the show. And I think every tenant that I had, because they knew what my vision was, and as their leases ran out, I politely asked them to if they had found other places, and they did. And it wasn't a forced thing; they were free to stay if they wanted to. But they knew that I had a bigger vision, and they were supportive of that. So eventually, the house was cleared, and that kind of opened up the opportunity to do to rent on a shorter stay, right? Because I think we know what we get on 30 days, but we don't know what we get on 3 days and 5 days and 10 days, right? If you can break the numbers down, theoretically, you should be able to maximize more revenue. So that was pretty much what happened. 2011, 2012, we get on Airbnb. I think in 2011, I joined Airbnb. This was in its infancy, so to speak, because Airbnb,
It was new.
I think I had met Brian Chesky in the city, the CEO of Airbnb. I'd met him at Mixers before. So it was really.
Wow. It was back when Brian was going like door to door, huh?
No. I don't want to paint that picture. I think he had already owned a few doors by then, but he would still. I think he had popped up at one of like the host forum mixers in New York at that time.
Oh yeah.
New York, I think, was an emerging market for them.
Yeah.
So very personable. The Airbnb as a company was not as large. It didn't scale what we know it to be today. So I was very fortunate to see kind of the development of it and see the logo change and things kind of change. Not the logo, but things kind of change over the years. So that's kind of how I walked into this hospitality and B&B piece. And then for me, it was kind of like, I always say it was God's will that things worked out the way they did, because the house, the legal classification for the house was a very interesting certificate of occupancy in New York City. And I'm sure every city or municipality has a different 2-family, 1-family, multi-use commercial. But in New York, we have what's called Class B buildings versus Class A, which are residential. But this building happened to be Class B, multiple dwelling with 10 furnished rooms for transit. Wow. Now, when I bought the house in 2001, I was like, what's that? I didn't even know what that was. Wow. But because no one wanted that at the time. But maybe God had saw for me what was best for me before I even knew it. Because this is 2001. We don't start doing this until 2011.
Okay. You were just it was just waiting there dormant for you, huh?
Yeah, and it was I'll tell this story, it's kind of funny. There was a guy who lived on the block. He since passed away. His name was Lonnie. He actually got hit by a car when he came back to visit the block about 2 years ago. And Lonnie would always make fun of me because I put a blue awning outside the house. He would say, man, your house looks like a hotel. It looks like a hotel. That's whack. Take the awning down.
Okay.
It's funny how things can speak into existence before they happened. Lonnie, right, and Lonnie was like the street mayor. He was the block of the mayor block. You could find him anytime. He was always around. Everyone loved him. And he, sometimes God speaks to us through not sometimes, all the time, through the ways that we may least expect it. And Lonnie may have prophesied this or may have called this before it even happened. And I later told him that. I said, Lonnie, look what happened. You said you were the first one that said it. I never even imagined. I thought you were trying to make fun of me, but you were spot on.
Right. So, he's like, you called it, huh?
Lonnie called it. Lonnie, if you're listening, I know you're listening. I'm shouting you out, Lonnie. We appreciate you. So
how about that? Yes.
That's a fact. That's what happened. Right.
So then how do you go from setting up your fledgling B&B to being on Netflix? What
I think that's the part that's probably to this day. I'll tell you what happened, right? So I'm operating 2011, 2012. Each year I'm making a little more money. I think the first year I made, I'm going to give some numbers. I don't want to be exact. I could be. Let's say the first year I made $4,000, which was great because we started like October, November on Airbnb specific. The next year I'm like 70. The following year I'm seeing like 78. Then I'm seeing like 90. And numbers I had never imagined, right? So
good stuff.
Yeah, right. For me, listen, I'm first generation college. I shout out all my brothers and sisters. We've all been to college. Our mother, we're all first generation college. So for us, knowing how we grew up, things were very tight. To see any type of revenue like that beyond our traditional workspace for me was very humbling. Make a long story short, I start seeing more money. And then it's like 2018. I get this random email in my email that says, would you like to be casted for a show? Now, prior to that, we had done some shows. We had done a show called The Brownings that was featured on Netflix. We had did some shows. They actually filmed parts of Power around the corner from my house at a Jamaican restaurant. So this neighborhood was no stranger to filming. People had come there to film. It was cheap to film. I'm like, yeah, how much are you paying if you want to film at the house? I don't care if you sleep there, film there. You could have a poetry reading, a book signing. How much? How much money?
Because you were hustling.
Yeah, basically. Well, yeah, basically, yeah. So make a long story short, the email was asking if I wanted to be on the show. And I'm like, the house, yes. Me, no. I'm not really that comfortable with with the camera and that's not my thing. I'd rather just make it happen or make it work and kind of be I'm gonna be like the backup guy. So it required me to be on the show with my sons. And for me, that wasn't my comfort zone. So I say it to say sometimes you have to step out your comfort zone to find opportunity. because I don't like necessarily like the attention on me. It's not really about me. It's about the house, right? So I said yes. We went back and forth, make a long. I replied to the email. So I guess the first takeaway is if you get a random email, say yes. I'm like, yeah, do it. First, I'm like, no, I'm telling my friends no, but then I'm telling them yes to everything. Then you got to do a Skype video and send us a Skype. I had never did Skype in my life. I learned that. I drove around the neighborhood. I did the Skype, tell them about the neighborhood, why they should pick me. Then they called me. They're like, yeah, we're going to send out a casting agent and some folks from California. At that point, I'm like
it's getting good now, huh?
Send them, let's do it. But in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, right. Like they're not going to pick me anyway, but you don't want to say no. It's going to be no. Let it come down to them, not you, right?
Absolutely.
I believe you can always turn a no. You can always turn yes. You can always you can't turn a no into a yes, but you can. It's harder to turn a yes into a yes if they tell you no. I don't know how it goes, but you guys get my point.
Yeah.
So they come out and they send out a gentleman named George Versoch. George, who we still keep in touch with. He just texted me the other day. I texted him, he texted me back. And he was the original casting director for The Real World. So
okay.
You could Google him. So now this is starting to sound believable.
You're like, okay, wait a minute, this could be real, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, this is for real. But I never was crazy about The Real World. I remember that show when I was younger, but I was like, all right, this guy's for real. He can do it. He can pull it off. He's the real deal. They send them out, and now they like, we want to do a Skype interview with you, similar to like a podcast what we would know today, because this is back in 2018. Make a long story short, they do it. They're like, we're gonna. Then it comes to money, right? Because to be on this show, you had to put up a certain amount of revenue. And
right. So we want to know that. We want to know if you financed it or did they finance it or
no,
did
they give you the option. They're like, you can put up as much as $250,000, but the least amount you can put up is $25,000. Naturally, I'm putting up $25,000 because I did the math. I'm like, $25,000 to be on Netflix, and I'm not gonna lie, I was hesitant about that because you're Netflix, you have the money, you should be paying me. Like I'm the star, in my own.
Well, now you're the star, huh?
Yeah, now I'm hot all of a sudden.
Okay. Now you're hot. All right.
Right. I'm confused. It doesn't work that way. Make a long story short, naturally I say, okay, I'm gonna put up $25,000. Okay. So this is where I got interested. I remember going to Citibank, and I'm grateful to God that I even had that $25,000 to do that, right? Because you may not have an opportunity knocks, but you may not be ready to answer the door. In this instance, I was. So I had the money, and I remember going to Citibank on Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn, and the teller was like, "Where are you sending this money to, Jackson?" They know that's the local bank I go to. I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna be on TV. They want this for a show." They're like, "What? $25,000 to be on TV?" They think I'm getting played. So I'm like, hire it. Let's go. I'm not here, for you to give me your opinion. I need to spend this money. Speed it up. Sent the money. Then we went back and forth with some legal paperwork about the layout, design, stuff like that. I'm thinking I'm gonna be straight up because this is what happened. I'm like, well, if you're coming into Brooklyn to do work, you have to use local contractors because my whole premise was that the money that comes into the house stimulates the local economy. Yeah. I'm like, and preferably contractors of color, right? Because these are the guys who primarily do work in this neighborhood. And those are the guys who I've relied on years to get me this far, right? They're like, no problem. You sure your guys are good? They're going to be reliable? I'm like, no doubt these guys are good. They're licensed. I send these out to these guys. I get them the job. These guys don't have license, permits, insurance. They don't have anything. They're like, look, we can't use your people. We got to call in like the professionals. So now I'm feeling kind of dumb because I'm like, I'm advocating for contractors from our community to come in or the community in Brooklyn to come in and do this work, but they couldn't even do it, right? So that's another story. But point is, they sent these guys in to Riviera Electric. They did a phenomenal job. They brought them in. They brought another construction GC company in that kind of oversaw the construction process. So I know I'm jumping.
Let me ask you because I'm big on the design of this.
So to make a long story short, I say yes. On December 4th of 2018, and they filmed for 5 days. So that.
Gordy, did we lose you?
Yeah, my back end. Sorry about that. Yeah, they began the process of filming me for this show on December 4th of 2018. They start filming, and they spent 5 days in the house.
Let me ask you this: we broke up a bit. So do they say we're coming in with this design and it's take it or leave it, or do you get input on it? Do you all figure it out
Well,
together? Were you really surprised at the end? You know
no.
what?
So they have
No.
Genevieve. Genevieve was on the show
Mhm.
before. He's leaving practice. Peter, Genevieve designer. She has extensive history in design, interior design. She's been on several different networks for her excellence. Peter is the finance business guy. So Peter and Jen, from what I understand, had done some background conversations with the designers and the architect that I used prior to this happening. So I was able to give some. I wanted a very contemporary style. I wanted something that didn't, because they only renovated portions of the house. It wasn't the whole house. So I wanted the work to reflect the work kind of that was already the character and kind of flavor or vibe of the house, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, you want
So
to be consistent from room to room to some extent.
right. To a degree, right? Because then, it wouldn't be, it was like if 4 floors had more of a modern design, and then 2 floors looked old school, and 1 floor looked like it was like sleek Italian Euro, that would look a little odd, right?
Right.
So make a long story short, we kind of punched through that, and I had given some input on things that I liked. And I think when they came in and saw how I designed the rest of the house, it was easy for them to pull pieces, because what they really did was they pulled stuff from all over the house to design those rooms that you saw.
Okay.
So the house was already decorated, and they really went around and cherry picked and shopped and bought some things in of their own to complement what was already there, and they did an amazing job. So when you get at the end, and I'm like, I can't believe it! Wow, I'm really surprised. I had not seen it for 5 days. They don't let you see it. So and
right now.
yeah, all that stuff they did shocked me. There are pieces that you see in those photos from items that were all over the house, many of which they bought in, and some I've since changed. It's been a few years. You have to switch some things around a little bit, but yeah, that's pretty much what you saw. Was what you see in the end is what they did.
It was pretty dramatic and a spectacular transformation. But I have to say that for the group that I work with, you had us at the name. Do you want to tell us about the origin of the name for anybody who hasn't seen your episode and let them know where you expect?
Yeah,
because you had us by now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and that's probably what was, I've called it Yellow. It's obviously Yellow Block Bed and Breakfast, and the reason why I called it Yellow Block is I have 3 sons, and my oldest son, Cairo, he's a junior now. He's a computer science major at Morehouse. And when he was little, I had worked for Johnson & Johnson. I did pharmaceutical sales. And I sold a product, and one of the giveaways or the items you leave when you go to the doctor's offices was a little yellow Lego, like a Lego block. And for some reason, he was attached to the yellow Lego. And every time we would leave the house in the morning, he wouldn't feel comfortable leaving unless he had the Lego. So it got to the point where I'm like, listen, we can't find this every morning. I was taking him to school on my shoulders. I'd ride him on my bike, on the back of my bike, because you couldn't find parking near where the daycare was in Brooklyn. He said, Dad, I need the yellow Lego. I can't leave without this. So I realized the Lego became kind of like our little, all right, that's the cue in the morning. If I don't have this yellow Lego, I know things for him to start off right. So I called it Yellow Block because when he was little, he was attached to this yellow block. And I wanted any business that I did to be a sense of comfort and security and safety really for my kids. At that point, I only had 1 son. I didn't know 2 more would come, thank God. But that's really where the name started. It was really from him. And to Johnson & Johnson, who hired me with their neuroscience and psychiatry division to sell this product, and him liking the giveaway that they gave really was where it came from. So it's very, yeah.
Very sweet, very sweet. Okay, so it's been 5 years. What has been the biggest change for you since the end of the show to now?
Okay, biggest change for me has been end of the show to now. Well, one, there's a process when the show is over. You have to put the house back together. So what you guys see at the end of the show is like, oh, everything, wow, it's great. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the backyard. You got to move it in the house. I mean, these crews come in to film. They're not that concerned as much about you're not taking guests in the day after they walk out. That's not happening.
Okay.
That's the way it looks on the show. You could, And I tried that, but you're going to have a few hosts to fill up. Remember, these guys are professional contractors, but they're also working quickly. So they're preparing the house for filming, not so much as it is, you have, in other words, as an owner, you have an obligation to take care of some things when they leave.
Okay, so are they finished with the construction or everything, or is it just kind of faked and then they come back and
No,
finish
no, no.
it up, or?
Everything works for the
Okay,
most part. Right.
okay.
For the most part. Everything plugs
So you
in.
have to move your personal property and stuff back in and figure out where that's going to fit into the design.
Yeah, well, I think the best way to do it is this. If you're setting up a new Airbnb and you're staging it, is everything going to be that way when the guests come in? No, right? We're going to put certain things in certain places to create a certain optic that's
Yeah.
best to market the property. You're in real estate. Every apartment that you set up, that you stage for a potential client to view with the wide millimeter camera and everything else, may not be what they get on moving day, right?
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Yes. You're
I,
taking things out, you're making it clutter-free,
exactly.
you're staging the photos so that the color balances and you have the fresh flowers and yeah, the whole nine. Yes. Okay. We get that.
Apples on the table that
Yes. Yes.
So
Rainbow bagels.
exactly. Now the bagels, that's a whole nother story. But everything
What about the bagels though? Hold on, I want to hear the bagel story because that was kind of brilliant. That whole yellow bagel piece.
yeah, that was all hats off to Peter and Jen and the casting folks. They found the bagel shop in Brooklyn, which is a well-known, I would say, famous bagel shop in Brooklyn, who created this Yellow Block bagel for us. And we can't thank them enough for putting together this recipe, for them and their team for putting this recipe together for us to have these bagels for guests when they come in. So if anybody makes it into Brooklyn, definitely go to the bagel shop. They make great bagels, as all bagel shops in Brooklyn are good for the most part.
Are they still making your bagel?
So this is the deal, right? So I have not used that bagel piece as much for guests, but here's why. It's about a 48-hour to 72-hour turnaround to get the bagels.
Okay.
And you have to be able to, bagels are one of those things, if you don't eat them that morning, you got a hockey puck by that afternoon.
Right.
So their bagels are fresh, and I don't want to compromise the integrity of their product, serve something that would not have been up to par for what they created for the show. So unless I know guests are coming and I can coordinate that delivery to come in before 10 a.m. Now, most of my groups who come in, or my guests who come in, they're out by 8 a.m.
Okay.
They're coming for something. So I'd have to make sure those bagels are there between 6 and 6:30, and they need a 48-hour window period to prepare that.
That's a lot to coordinate.
Logistically didn't fit well with the type of guests that I have that come. That product was, product was great, guests are great, but I'm not sure there was a marriage with the two as it related to timing. And they were like, well, you can freeze them and then they can. I'm like, well, that's not really your bagel anymore, right? Because we don't eat frozen bagels in New York aren't really a need because we have so many fresh bagels, right?
So the logistics didn't work for that.
It didn't work, right? The product, in terms of what I was trying to do, it didn't work. It was not it wasn't the best fit for the guests that I have.
Okay.
But no,
well, let me go back to my original question because I think I cut you off. What's the biggest change from then and now?
So some changes that have happened. Obviously, the demographics of the neighborhood have changed. When I started, it was definitely more of a Brooklyn feel. Well, it's always been a Brooklyn feel. It's still a Brooklyn feel to the neighborhood. But, neighbors have left, new neighbors have come in, which is great. There's nothing wrong. That's a win-win. Obviously, doing hospitality post-pandemic or during the pandemic came with some challenges that we were able to, thank God, we were able to kind of push through and get through that. There's some new regulatory stuff coming down the pike in New York City with regards to Airbnb and hosting. So we're trying to prepare and navigate to be sustainable through that. But I think in terms of people coming, groups coming, people looking for a stay that's economical, that's comfortable, that's clean, I'm not sure that changed much. Tourism and travel seem to be back up to what it was before. I don't feel like, like the numbers of the groups are smaller. People still are primarily looking for a place to stay that's affordable, that's clean, and that's safe, right? The same thing we'd want for our children or our grandchildren if they travel. So I think.
Why don't you talk some more about that? Because you, unlike every other host that I've ever met, wanted to maintain the same kind of pricing that you had pre-Netflix.
Correct.
And that's really, not how hosts are really viewing things. They're trying to maximize, the nightly rate, and you didn't do that. And so, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, certainly there was a return on investment with the exposure from Netflix, and it was going to create an opportunity for me to have a broader market.
Yes.
But what got me that far was a price point that was digestible, right? And you know, I wanted the house to be reflective of the neighborhood and the people who built these homes, and I wanted the neighborhood and the pricing to be something that people could come and still enjoy New York City, right? There's some hosts who charge $2,000-3,000 a night for the same thing I do, but if you put a group, first of all, if you're looking for me on Airbnb, cost is a factor, right? That's why you're looking on Airbnb, and that's one of the variables that you're looking for. How can I create meals, accommodations, and safety for a large group at an economic rate? So I don't need to ask you that before you reach out to me, because if you're on Airbnb, it's because you've already calculated that this may be a less expensive option or better for you. So if you're looking for that, you found it, right? So with that being said, I always wanted to make the price point consistent with what we needed to be sustainable, and also enough that if you wanted to bring a group and cost was a factor, I wanted to help you remove that barrier. And if it wasn't a factor, then it was nothing to talk about, just pay the rate. But if you wanted to come with 22 kids from France who were lower income, which we get quite frequently, then I wanted that to be affordable for their parents to come to this country and visit. I think we get this pretense that everybody who travels internationally comes with a lot of money. I can tell you for sure that's not true. I've seen families and grandparents come on a shoestring budget and cook and do everything they could to make this one-time family vacation possible to come to New York City. And I wanted to be, I didn't want to be, but I'm humbled that we could help make that happen.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I got to ask this question before I forget. So you're clearly in a residential neighborhood. When a family from France or an organization from France with 22 kids rolls up, what do the neighbors say? Are they just like, oh, look at Gordy, he's got 22 kids coming in, or are they giving you any pushback?
It's like this, it creates almost like this international mesh of people. Now, the other thing people need to know about Brooklyn is that, yeah, you know, it's a block in Bed-Stuy, but you got people there who are from, you know, St. Lucia, from Haiti, from Barbados, from down south, people who came from Europe who moved there. So it's not as much of a, it wasn't, I mean, don't get me wrong. In the beginning, when I first started and dudes was hanging out across the street on the block, I remember there were guys that used to hang out across. I was like, listen, y'all got to break out for like 30 minutes. I got a group coming.
You can't be here when they arrive, huh?
No, they're over there doing their thing. And I'm like, listen, you got to break out for 30 minutes. And they're like, what? I'm like, listen, I need y'all, you know, this is my diplomacy, my public relations skills coming. I'm like, listen, I need y'all to bounce for 30 minutes. We just go inside until they get comfortable. Because if they see you posted up out here staring at them,
they're gonna keep going.
There's gonna be a problem.
Yes.
So we punch through that. They moved, the guys moved, thank God. You know, that house got demolished, the new house got built. Time, you know, time takes care of everything. So there were some times in the beginning where people came and I could tell they were looking outside like, what's really gonna go on here? And I'm like, nah, you're fine. Don't worry about anything. You know, everything's fine. I'd be waving at everybody. My neighbors were great. They still are. They were receptive. Many of them began hosting. So we kind of wrapped ourselves around guests to make sure that they felt comfortable. The local stores did better. The corner store did better. They started changing their products, putting in more international stuff. Everybody won. The train station, excuse me, up the block got cleaner. More police started patrolling that train station. Cafes, bars, and restaurants opened up on Bedford and Nostrand.
Okay.
And I'll say this. I know we had an impact on that, because when you see 25 people from Europe walking down the block in the middle of a Saturday, it sends the message that this neighborhood is now viable for more businesses.
Yes.
Let's keep it 100, right? That's what the message we sent. So I felt like what we were doing was we were providing some stimulus for new opportunities for business in the neighborhood. And that to me was like an unforeseen benefit. Because at first I was like, maybe y'all should break up in groups. 20's a bit much. Go 4, wait a minute, go the other 4. But no, they rolled together.
You're like, don't go to big crowd. It's going to be too much.
No. Let me tell you, they've never been step 2. None of my guests have ever been robbed. Nothing has ever happened. This is, and I'm hoping that, you know, if guests signed on, they can attest to this. Nothing has ever happened to anybody who came to that house. That's all God, you know, to God's, you know, mercy on the house and watching over the guests who have come and gone. We've never had an issue. Not a single issue. But if you saw 20 people walking, even if somebody wanted to test you, they're not likely to do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And guests would come in and be like, "Are we safe?" I'm like, "Safe? There's 24 of you. Even if you ran into 5,
You can handle your own.
who's robbing 24 people? You have a machine gun for that. Like, you're gonna be fine. Trust me." And
That's good. That's good.
they're fine. They're fine. Trust me. Yeah, they're fine.
All right, I'm going to ask you this. What is your favorite part of hosting?
So my favorite part of hosting is when guests come, it's their initial response when they walk in. Wow. Oh my goodness. Because there's more to the house than what you see online. So even if you look
at this, huge. It just must be. It looks like it's like what, 5 stories tall?
Yeah, it's five stories. Yep. And guests have access to like four of the stories, 3 or 4 of the stories, depending on how you look at it.
Okay.
But and actually they have access to all the stories, and they can go pretty much. They're free to visit and kind of make their way around.
In your space too, or are you still living there?
Yes, I still. As part of the transient occupancy laws in New York City is that
you have
to reside at the home, right? So, okay. So when I see guests that come in and they kind of you hear them, you feel their excitement about the space.
Nice.
Then you know that you've done something really nice. And you see, like, I've had guests come who we probably couldn't be any further apart socially and politically and so many different dynamics that made us so different. And when you sit with them and they're like, "Thank you. I came here for my granddaughter's wedding from Kansas and I can't believe it." Or I came here we couldn't believe the price was so low for what we received when we arrived. We couldn't believe it. And thank you. And they mean it. Nice. And people are like, "I can't believe you charge this little." When I hear that, I'm even happier.
Yeah, I can't believe you charge that little. But
you're like, "I can't either." No,
that's another story. Okay, if that's your favorite part, what's your least favorite part? And I think I know what you're gonna say, because this is everybody's least favorite part. If it has to do with, folders,
you get some guests who violate your space, who demonstrate a lack, and that's not often, right? That might be like out of every 40, 50 groups, you might get one who does something that you find to be a little bit disrespectful. And I've had several incidents like that. I had one group from, I'll say they're from Russia. I had one group from Russia who was like, "We're not leaving." And I was like, "What? You're not leaving?" Well, they had rented, this is back when I started, they had rented one room and not another room, but I gave them 2 rooms because I was trying to be helpful to them. And it was time for them to go. They were like, "We're not leaving the other room." And I was like, "No, you are." But that was very isolated. Then I had another group where somebody had booked with like a fake ID. And this particular group booked with a fake ID, and they came to throw like a party.
Yes.
And the party was all over Instagram and it was lined up. So we took care of that. Then I had another group that came and did a fish fry that was bugged out that they didn't tell me about before they did it. So I've had some situations that were uncomfortable and scaled to the number of good groups that I had.
Okay. I thought you were going to say it was all about, folding towels or, washing sheets or something.
Oh, no, that's I don't mind that. That's the least of it.
Okay.
I think somebody coming into your home because remember, we do home sharing, right? So the idea that someone could come to your home and do something that would violate the obvious rules and regulations that you've laid out before, right?
Yeah, that's offensive.
I think it's a little offensive in a sense that, how much it's almost like you have a house guest and then they come and you say, "Wear your shoes in the house," and you go upstairs and there's mud all over your bathroom floor. And
right.
These were things that were avoidable. But that happens, and you have to, you got to get up and brush it off and clean it up and keep moving. It's also doing business.
You have to, yes, it is. And that's what I tell people. There are some things that are just going to happen, and you have to have the wherewithal to, survive those kinds of things, because they do happen, and you just try to minimize them, but they're going to happen.
Yeah, and it's small stuff. In scale to what you get back in terms of the cultural immersion and what you learn from your guests, these are small things. So I think you have to bite them and make each one a learning experience and be diplomatic. And really, it's like customer service. The guest is always right? And even if you want to have a polite conversation about etiquette, make sure it's after the review. And make sure it's after and do it in a healthy way, right? Well, listen, I just want to let y'all know that you didn't have to do it this way, or should you rent again to a host, these are some things you need to be considerate about to make sure that you can come back here again, because we know that if some things go wrong, it can jeopardize our ability to host. So
Well, that is very diplomatic of you.
you have to be. Yeah, you have to be. Because you're the one sitting. I mean, the last thing you want is someone to make you their campaign on social media.
Oh, yes, yes.
You're going to lose that fight, right?
Yeah.
Because we are in the business of hospitality, of hosting, of creating a good experience for people. And for each minute, second, or hour we spend fighting somebody who's no longer in our space or trying to justify something that they may have pointed out. Maybe you didn't leave on clean towels. Maybe the bathroom could have been a little cleaner, right? So, those, I'd rather focus on doing those things right than arguing about a narrative about something that took place that I can't.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you, are you with us? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's my son. He's at wrestling practice. He keeps calling me. I said
We'll ask you about your sons because we want an update on your sons. But first, I'm going to ask you, can you give a few tips for people who are just starting as hosts? Let's hear it from the pro. What do you
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't say, I would say know your local market, know your demographic, know your market. Okay, so if, you want to get into this, you want to do it. Can you host legally where you're kind of considering to do it? That's probably the first step. I mean, you're an attorney.
You got to start at the very top, right? Because if you can't get past that, you can't get to the rest of it.
You can't. And I'd also say to people, I get this question probably once or twice a week. Hey, I'm looking at this property. Do you think it would be good for Airbnb? And I'm like, I wouldn't look at a property for Airbnb. I'd look at a property because it's a good property. So know that even if you can't monetize the asset to get that daily return on investment, that you can still use the asset for your own personal portfolio. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't tell anyone to buy a property to do Airbnb. I'd say buy a property that you wouldn't mind living in. Buy a property that you know would be a good investment property. Buy a property you want to improve the neighborhood that you do it in. But I think to buy it just for Airbnb, I probably wouldn't go that route.
So are you expanding your business now? Are you going to have, you a franchise Yellow Block BNB? Are they going to be on every corner next to Starbucks or?
Yeah, the franchise piece that's come up on more than one occasion. I don't think that would be the business model I would use to duplicate this experience, because the concept of the Yellow Block is it's personal to me, to my sons. It's kind of a personal thing.
Right. I don't have Gordy in every Yellow Block, and that's not possible. So
yeah, well, we did a DC property. There's one in DC that we ended up renting long term. There was some things in DC we opted not to there was some loopholes and stuff. And I only tell the story about knowing your landscape because I bought a property in DC pre-COVID, renovated it during the pandemic, had this big plan, but then the DC regulations were a little different, right? So I ended up shifting that model to a longer term rental. But all in all, it was great because I still bought the property and renovated it, and now and then my son was thinking about going to Howard at the time, so I'm like, perfect, we don't have to pay for room and board, he can stay here. So there was some other things in place, but then he chose Morehouse, which was a great choice. But I say all that to say, I wouldn't say you have to buy a property to do Airbnb. You might be able to lease that property and minimize your exposure, right? Do a 24-month lease, make sure the right language is in the lease to support your business plan, and do it that way. I would say if you don't own a property, if you rent it, be transparent with the landlord or the owner about what your intentions are, because you'd hate to get started and then have to stop because they're just uncomfortable with it because you weren't being straight up.
Right.
I would say try to check the numbers, scale the numbers for your neighborhood. Like when people ask me, they're like, I want to do an Airbnb in Mississippi, in Biloxi, if that's even the right way to say it. I would say, well, put your block in Biloxi, Mississippi, and see what rates are for a 2-bedroom. If it's $82 a night and you can get booked for 20 nights out the month, that's $1,600, but the property's going to cost you $1,400 a month. Is that a good return on investment? It may be, it may not be, right? But if you're paying $400 a month for the property and you can see where you can clear 12 and you see that those 5-star reviews and those calendars are filled up, then you know you have something. But if the latter, if you put in there's nothing there, you may have something there too. I also tell.
Or you may not. You got to be careful with that one because either it's completely uninteresting to everybody, or you're the new kid in the block and you have a market you could create yourself.
Yeah, and then also to ask yourself, well, what are people coming to that demographic for? They're college and university. Prisons are colleges are great. Universities are great.
That's good.
Anything allows people to come into that demographic on a consistent basis. I think if you're near any correctional facility, you know your weekends are going to be busy. I mean, let's be honest, right? Families they've had a loss to income because a member of their family maybe have withdrawn from the house because now they're serving this time, but they still want to visit, right? So if you're near a prison, near a juvenile facility, correctional facility, a college, a hospital, those are markets that people would traditionally shy away from, that you may be able to create some short-term housing for people who need to come and visit. So those are things I would say to expand the vision of where you think you can do business. Because the obvious is, oh, there's shows, there's concerts, tourism attractions. Well, those are one option, but there's also avenues of business that are available too, that you may be able to pick up on that are non-traditional. Right. And I think if you're thinking that way, you'll be more sustainable.
Yes, I agree completely. And we talk about some of that in our community. We talk about doing maybe midterm stays, not all short-term stays. We talk about doing situations where you're connected with an insurance company, and the insurance, you're housing people who've been displaced because of fire or water damage to their home. So there's lots of different ways. They're not quite as sexy as the, beachfront luxury traveler, but but they can pay the bills, and they can make your business sustainable, off season or just all the time as a business model. But yeah, so I agree completely. So it's been 5 years. Everything is good. What's the next 5 years look like?
I think the next 5 years theoretically is to enjoy more what the blessings of this experience have brought for me. Because it's funny, I was on the phone this morning on another call, and I was looking back at the last 5 or 6 years. We were trying to put together a timeline for something we're working on, and I'm looking at. I take pictures of everything, and I don't post them. I just save them in my phone so I know what date things happened. So I'm looking back on pictures where we moved things, and I'm like, well, this has been a lot of work. This has been very taxing and very demanding, and I'm getting older, and I'm like, well, how do I make the next 5 years more time useful in terms of doing quality of life things, spending a little more with kids, doing more things that are fun. I'm at the point I see a Home Depot, so I feel like I know what's in every house. I used to get 2 pieces of sheetrock, and I can only carry one. I've done it all. So
I know I would go to Home Depot. They'd be like, "Hi, Pam."
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's out. Like customers actually like, no, it's behind. It's behind the screws and out too. You kind of know everything. That's Home Depot's like all over Brooklyn. It's like I feel like I know the staff. I've seen people come and go, and right. So the next 5 years, I'd like them to look a little more tranquil, right? A little bit more peaceful. Definitely switch to some other business sectors where I'd like to do and do some other things, and really expand to find so the thing about the vacation rentals and the short-term rentals is it's passive income too. I don't know if it's passive. I always get that mixed up, but it's income.
Kind of passive. It's pretty passive compared to a lot of things,
Yeah, I always get some words mixed up. So if anybody's on the podcast, pardon me, I get some terminology mixed up. But it's income you make that you don't have to be hands-on 24 hours a day, right?
Yes.
And I find that I like that, and it's also good work because you're creating. We know that there's a need for affordable housing. We know that there's a need for affordable housing, right? In every major city, every demographic, cost of living are going up. I felt like I was able to fill that gap, but for short-term, affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could do more of things like this, then it would be a blessing. Like there's been groups that have come to the house that I think had we not done it this way, visited New York City with that number of people would have been a problem.
That's wonderful.
That's part of my work that I find probably the most gratifying, second to people feeling like they just got a really good deal. I love people giving people a good deal. That feels better to me than the best thing about Airbnb is the day after they come in, you get the money in your account, right? That's one of the best days.
It's kind of like magic because it just appears, at come 4 o'clock or whenever you check in, 24 hours later, it's like Christmas.
I
Yes.
and when that wasn't the case, I was with them when you had to wait 2 or 3 days, and you're like,
Right. It's pretty automatic now. It's kind of nice. It's clockwork.
I can tell you days when they had a little different model and they were kind of ramping up to get to this point.
Yes.
And like day 2, day 3, and then it would pop. They had if you read the language, and they're really good now. But I feel good about that. I feel good that people can come and have a stay that is affordable. I'm straight up. I love it. And that they can do more things in New York than what they had planned to, because they now have an extra $150 to $200 per person on that trip to maybe go to a dinner or to see a Broadway show or to spend money on Fulton Street buying some new sneakers. I don't need to get all the money. I need to know that the money is being spent back in the communities that I live in so that it becomes sustainable.
Nice.
That big job.
I know that you have a not-for-profit. You want to talk about that?
I do. So I started yellowblock.org or Yellow Block Community Development Group. And we started that in 2018. We've done work in Haiti. We've been to Haiti post the last big event they had in Haiti. We went down, we did some donations with some other groups, the Brooklyn Bank, Core Services, and some other folks in Brooklyn who made some large scale donations. And we actually delivered the money right into Haiti, picked up supplies in Haiti, and drove 5 hours across Haiti to deliver to some of the areas that were impacted. Wow. So that was some international stuff we did. At one point, I was sponsoring a Global Academy in Ghana, and was sending them resources to help support some of the programming that they did at their school. I kind of need to circle back and do more with them. We've done PPE drives. We did food drives in conjunction with Fresh Direct during the pandemic. I think we probably fed over 500 families. Yep, sorry, but I'm getting called. They're coming in, so I'm trying to block them. But we've done food drives, PPE drives, mask drives, block cleanups. We just helped distribute. This was really fun. We distributed 12,000 boxes of cereal across New York City and Westchester and upstate New York. So I have a lot of fun doing stuff like that because you make some money, but then you get a chance to do some fun things, to give some things back. Right now, I have 45 coats that I'm still distributing for street homeless. They're coats, sleeping bag, jackets to give to people who are street homeless, who choose to be street homeless. Not that you're not running around just handing out coats, but these are people who have made a conscious decision that living independent of traditional housing works for them, and we want to honor and respect people with dignity in the spaces that they live in. So I'm doing a distribution with them, and sometimes it's just me driving through the city. I see the same guy in the same corner with his tent. Here, bro, this is for you, and you don't pass judgment, you don't ask questions. I don't need to take a picture. I'm not doing an Instagram photo. We don't do all of that, and we try to do things like that to give back. So I'd love to do more work with that. Right.
And I'm going to let you tell us how we can support you, your organization, and the Yellow Block BNB. But first, I got to ask, how are the boys? I have to say, your boys came with 3 distinct personalities on the show. The little one is just absolutely adorable.
Yes.
The middle one looked like a ham. And the oldest one looked too cool for school. He was...
Thank you so much. They're good guys. Like they're the best of. They're the best. Sometimes I look at them and I'm like, they can't be my sons. Like I'm like, they correct me. They straighten me out. They remind me. They're better guys than I ever even dreamed I could be. So my youngest son is so intellectual. He's so smart. He's so nice. He's such a good guy. Like he's like Obama. He's a good guy.
It's Obama.
He is the real deal. One time I had him in a park and I looked over, he was sitting on the bench crying. This was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He was a little younger. And I said, Caden, what's wrong? He said, Dad, we made the other kid fall, so we put ourselves in timeout. I'm like, who does that?
Okay.
Right? My middle son, he's a wrestler. I wrestled, so we go to wrestle. That's the way it's calling me now. Um, he represents, he's the one that represents very different approach. He's a little more aggressive, a little bit more, let's get it
His
done.
expressions on the show, he was like,
Yeah. And he was the one that was making bed and stuff like that, right?
yes,
So
yes.
he has his own way of doing things, and you got to keep up with him. And then my oldest son, he's like my little son. He's Cairo's at Morehouse. He's just a brain. He's just smart. He's diplomatic. He's
Wonderful.
very patient, very intellectual. He's traveled. He's done some international travel with Morehouse, so we can't say thank you enough to Morehouse and the Morehouse extended family that we've created that have supported him through his education. So they're all very, very good guys. I couldn't do it without the wonderful work of their mothers, because I was married for a while, then had a son after that. So all hats off to, I don't parent alone, obviously. My work would not be possible without them having wonderful mothers who guide their process and allow me to be the father and man that I am to support them. So
are there any hosts in that group?
Any host?
Yeah, are your sons gonna take over? They're gonna run the Yellow Block BNB?
Yeah, one Cairo's computer science. I was talking to him yesterday. He told me he wants to do some type of computer analytics. I was like, I spell it. He's so smart. Good luck, Chad.
Hosting.
Yeah, listen, I'll make some beds. Let me know what you need. I'll help you. They know how to make bed. They know how to clean. They don't do it as much. We have some help that comes in. Miss Vega and her team come in and help us out with some of those things. So thank you to Miss Vega. We would not be able to do it without her and her family and her team. When they were younger, they did so much. Like this, I'll say this to folks who are thinking about hosting if your kids are smaller. My son's like almost grew up in the laundromat. We're washing 7,500 pounds of sheets. Then we need to get back on those beds in like an hour or two. People in the laundry are like, you're leaving your kids here for an hour to pull stuff out the dryer? I'm like, yes, because I got to go back and mop and sweep and scrub toilets. And I remember I have a friend. Yeah, a friend of mine, she's from Jamaica. She was like, I want to tell you something. Her parents ironically, her parents owned the Jamaican restaurant around the corner from the house where they had filmed Parts of Power when the show first started, which is crazy, right? And she said to me, let me tell you something. She said, I love how you are with your boys. She said, but I want you to know that me and my brother grew up in the backseat of the car at Home Depot. Like, what do you mean? She was like, because their family had owned a couple buildings in Brooklyn. And she said, my dad would take us with him every Saturday morning to run all his errands. And me and my brother, we kind of grew up with our dad playing in the backseat while he went in the store and bought stuff and went and dropped off and collected rent and painted. And that, I thank her for that, because that really stuck in my mind. And after that, I was like, she's very successful. She grew up, she's sharp, but it was God's will for her to give me that message. So then I said, you know what? Let me start doing more with them that doesn't necessarily serve this business model that I have, but because they're like, make beds. They're like, we want to jump on beds.
Right. We want to unmake the beds.
Yeah. So somewhere between teaching them business and tough lessons and business acumen and discipline, they have to still be allowed to be kids too.
Yes.
So if they were to tell me that they don't want to do this and that it wasn't for them, it'll be fine, because I would hope that by then they come up with something better. They've never said they didn't want to continue to do it, and they know how to. So I'm confident that and I guess for me the vision would be that this would be sustainable for them, for their families, right? To create some additional revenue. They would have income for their families that would make their marriages stronger. That theoretically could give their children more options. It would help support their children's higher education goals. It would support their quality of life. So if this house can do that, then that may be something that may be a benefit beyond my years of being on this earth. I'd be too happy with that. So
it's a wonderful thing. Maybe they don't become hosts, but they can, because they know how and they've seen it. And so that's a wonderful gift to give to someone. And that's what I'm hoping to do with everyone who participates with the Happy Host Academy. You may not host right now, but if you have the skills at any point when you need it, or when your life affords you the time to do it, you can pull it out. You can set up a business. You could start entertaining guests, within a matter of however long it takes you to get that together. And what other business can you step into with that kind of, low barrier to entry once you get the skills? So
100%. I think what you're doing is phenomenal. I think the fact that you're even creating these types of conversations and spaces that people can learn organically, plus being given some legal advice, being given some logistical advice, and then hearing from hosts who've kind of gone through some of the ups and downs and trials and tribulations. I commend your work. I commend what you guys are doing, and thank you for doing it, because I think it expands and broadens the message about what it means to host. Another piece I want to not leave you guys with, but share with you is that it makes good real estate sense, because you're better preserved. You're bringing shorter stays into your home, which theoretically is less wear and tear. And in exchange, you're meeting more people. So volume with revenue, with exposure to your property will likely increase your property value, right? Because you're bringing more people in.
Yeah.
And theoretically, it should stimulate your local economy to do better because people are spending more locally. So there's a win-win hosting all the way around.
Plus, just in terms of maintaining and preserving and upgrading your real estate, you have to keep it in good shape. So you have to invest in it. That's right. A good thing. That's going to pay off at the end. Gordy, I could talk to you all day about this. I won't, because it's Saturday and you should get out and do some fun stuff. Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. We loved your episode.
Thank you.
Every part of it was really interesting and engaging and inspiring. And so I have one last question for you, because I know that this is what my group really wants to know. They want to know, how many marriage proposals did you get after this show aired?
Yeah, so
see, this is what I mean.
No.
So,
one of the things about the show that I didn't want, this was really important for me. I didn't want to come across like anything other than what I'm not, right? I wanted to be, I wanted to demonstrate being a father and a dad who was doing business and being straight up, but I didn't want that. I didn't want there to be like a sexy side to come out the show. I didn't want that.
Sorry, Gordy. I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to, I don't want to do that to you, but I just had to ask the question.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I don't mind.
I will say this though, I will say, as someone who hosts their home with kids in the home, it was really, I really felt a connection with you, because I don't find that many people doing it that way. And there are some very specific situations that you have to work around as a family when you have other people in your home, when you're preparing for them to arrive, when they're actually in your home, the aftermath of what it looks like when they leave and your home is, not exactly the way you would have kept it. And so seeing that and seeing you work through that with your kids was, I thought that was fantastic. So yeah. I didn't want to tease you about that, but I did want to say that resonated with a lot of people.
No, believe me. I wish I had gotten more proposals, because then it would have been easier, right? But I wasn't that fortunate. But I guess I didn't. I was always nervous after the show came out because sometimes, like, if you're a single guy on a show, it could kind of send a message that like you planning for like that Romeo space.
It didn't come across like that.
The house to really sell it. I really wanted to be about the neighborhood, the guests who come, the renovations, and I think naturally, because I think I'm more shy, I was really concerned that it wouldn't have come across that way, but they did such a good job editing it that it did. And I wanted to be a focus. Like, it's funny because I don't even like to post myself on social media, because I want everything to focus back on guests in the house and kind of what that experience is. And maybe that's my own shyness about being like that it makes it's harder for me. But no. But some folks did reach out. Let's be straight up. I did get some folks who reached out after the show.
See, okay.
All right. Flat and scared and nervous, because you got people from all over the world who are sending you all types of messages. They're like, I'm good.
Be careful. Just be careful, Gordy. I just want to say that I think you came across really well, and your family came across lovely, and the whole situation seems very warm and inviting, and I'm sure the guests respond to that, and that's why they want to come and be hosted by you. Yes. So I just want to say good luck in the future. Thank you again. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. I want to give another special shout out to the ladies of the Happy Host Academy. I'll see you all later this week. If you're not a part of the Academy and you want to join us, we offer a 7-day free trial, and then we move into what is really becoming a nice kind of intimate group right now. This week, we're going to be doing a review of how to prep your home, which, come on, Gordy, you know that's the big one.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
spend some time on that. And then we're going to have a holiday party, because why wouldn't we? 'Tis the season. I sent around my favorite hot beverage, spiked beverage recipe. So I'll be, sipping. You don't have to, but I will. And then we're going to get into, we're going to have another special guest. And I think I'm going to do a live case study of a space that I hosted for a while, just to show you another. I think it's really important to see these real life stories, like Gordy's story. Like, there are real people who are really doing this, and there's some good parts about it, and there's some not all that great parts about it. And really, you should hear those things, especially if you're contemplating whether this is something you want to do. And so, again, thank you, Gordy. And I'm be coming to Brooklyn again real soon. I just want to shout out my daughter, who is now going to attend Columbia University. So we will be there, and I'm gonna wave at the Yellow Block BNB when I'm there next.
Guys come to town, and any, to all to members of your group and anyone listening, thank you all for listening as well. Thank you.
Yes, yes. I wish I had an applause track, but instead I'll just clap and say,
no,
thank you.
Because you put this together. So thank you, Pam. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye now.